You might suck at Vermintide. It can be a challenging game on the higher difficulties. The game likes to lull you into a sense of security by allowing you to just hold W and spam left click on recruit and veteran. But as soon as you start to run champion and above, the game actually punishes you for doing this, and there are some things you need to learn if you want to one day do book runs on Legend or play Cataclysm. See, the game seems like it's a fairly simple spam fest on the first two difficulties, but the truth is, this game can be very deep and actually has a fairly high skill cap. This video is for the people who find themselves dying or taking a lot of damage all the way up to Legend. So, let's get this thing started. This is why you suck at Vermintide. Number 1. You suck at melee combat. You're not dodging, pushing, or using weapon combos. The majority of gameplay in Vermintide happens in melee combat. If you find yourself taking stray hits while you're fighting a horde, it's because you're not doing melee combat properly. To cure this, I'm going to walk you through it and give you a good starting point. And the best place to start is with dodging. And to talk about dodging, we have to understand how efficient dodges work. Each weapon has a number of efficient dodges. After you spam this number of dodges, your dodge will start to get shorter and shorter. Of course, you want to avoid this. Your efficient dodges will reset after not dodging for half a second. This means that you can't just spam your dodges, you need to space them out. So while fighting a horde, you should be dodging every second or so. That's the rhythm I like to stick to. You could try to squeeze in tied to that half-second timer, but I wouldn't wait any longer than a second to dodge. So if you're fighting a horde, your dodges should look something like this. Okay, so now that you've got your dodges down, let's talk about adding in your melee combo. Each melee weapon has at least 2 sequences of attacks, one for lights and one for heavies. If we pull up the Armory Mod, link in the description, we can see that each attack in a sequence has different properties. The time it takes to do the attack, or attack speed, damage cleave, stagger cleave, base damage, and damage to armored enemies. And some extra properties that I wouldn't worry about right now. I know these cleave values are kind of vague, but don't worry about the math of it. It's not important. Just know that the higher the number, the more it cleaves. When you look at these numbers, you may start to see some attacks are better than others at horde clear, and some are better than others at damaging armored enemies. So the idea is that you have a combination of attacks that are good for horde clear and a combination of attacks that are good for single target DPS. You can use the information from the armory along with looking at attack animations to come up with these combos. There are resources for this. Royale with Cheese has created a Bible of weapon combos on Steam, link in description. And I also always talk about weapon combos in my guides. A good weapon to start practicing with is the rapier. It's very simple to use. Your horde clear combo is to spam lights, and your anti-armor combo is to spam heavies. So to rewind a bit, now that you've got your dodge rhythm down, let's try to add your horde clear combo. And again with the rapier, it's just spamming lights. If you want to try a more difficult weapon, I would try the Elven Spear. For that, your horde clear combo is push attack, light, light, or heavy, light, light. Now, if you could keep up your rhythm of dodges while doing your horde clear combo, you're halfway there. But now we need to talk about push attacks. Sometimes hordes can get very dense, as in a lot of enemies in a small area. Things can get real bad if this happens, as your attacks may not be able to cleave through all of them to stagger them and stop them from hitting you. The cure for this is to push. Or even better, do a push attack if your weapon has a good push attack. Not everyone knows how to do a push attack. If you don't know, you have to hold left click after you do your push. So now to come back to our drill, start with your dodges, start working in your horde clear combo, and then finally start adding in push attack. Once you've got this down and you can do it in game against a horde, you'll be cutting through hordes without taking a whole lot of damage. Mind you, this is just a starting point. Ideally, you start to eye the enemy's attack animations and dodge them reactively, but I would say don't worry about that now, worry about that later. Doing this drill and practicing it gives you a pretty good starting point. 2. You're not killing specials. Think about the last few times you've died in a match. Chances are a fair number of those deaths were either directly or indirectly because of a special. And to be clear, when I say special, I mean these guys. Some of these, especially the disablers like the assassin or the choke rat, can end your run in a heartbeat. The others can push you into bad spots, cut you off from your team, or force you to take bad engagements. That's why the specials need to die first at all times, even when you're fighting a boss. And really, this is a conversation about enemy priority. So let me give you a loose enemy priority list. And at the top is specials, of course. Under that would be berserkers, plague monks. If one of them is attacking you, I would just block and ping them and let your team kill them. They can 100 to 0 you really fast, so they need to die ASAP when there's a group around them. Under that would be the rest of the elites and the horde, kind of on the same level. It's better if the elites die first, but it's often not possible when they're surrounded by horde units. But generally, if you're dodging and you have an eye out for their attack animations, they're not a huge threat. So then at the bottom, we have bosses. And I know that's counterintuitive, but if the boss is on you, you can just hold block and dodge, and you shouldn't take any damage. So since they only attack one person, and that person can just block and dodge and not take any damage, you can kill everything else first. That's a kind of simplified version of enemy priority. But keep in mind, you need to adapt to the situation and do whatever you need to do to keep your team alive. But now that you've got the melee combat down and you understand enemy priority, you're well on your way to playing like a veteran. So that covers micro and moment-to-moment gameplay, so now let's talk a bit about macro. Number 3, you're running ahead of your team. This is just about the worst thing you can do in group play. The general rule of thumb is that you're always by at least one player. If you're by yourself, you become very prone to getting picked off by assassins. If the AI director detects that you're by yourself, they will actually start spawning more assassins. So I don't care how good you are at the game or how easily you can dodge specials and solo the map. If that's how you like to play, honestly just play solo. It makes it very difficult for your team to play, because they'll always be fighting as 3 and not 4. And if you run through aggroing all the ambience, then it can make things really awkward. Number 4, you're not using your items. If you're coming from playing Left 4 Dead, you might think that you shouldn't use your health potions or kits unless you are black and white. Well, in Vermintide, this line of thought can lose you the game. This is simply because if one person goes down, your team can be easily overwhelmed, at which point you would just lose the game with your unused health kit in your inventory. With the spawns of health potions and health kits being fairly generous even in Cataclysm, you should just use your heal if you're under 20% health. Some veterans may disagree with me on this, but I have yet to see a counter argument that actually convinces me. So if you have one, let me know. And while we're on that train of thought, I should mention that a similar principle applies to combat potions and bombs. I see a lot of players saving their pots for the perfect opportunity to use them. Lo and behold, the perfect opportunity never comes and they end the game with their consumables in hand, never to be used. I am absolutely guilty of this. I think a way to cure this is to just use your potions anytime you have the slightest hunch that the run is in danger of ending. 2 people go down in a horde, pop the pot. You get a boss spawn with a horde and specials, chug it. Your elf javelins you in the back, well... And I think that will do it for this video. This should give you a solid foundation for you to grow as a player. If you have any questions at all, please leave a comment. I will be in the comment section answering questions, but also several veterans watch the channel and I'm sure could answer your questions as well. There are no stupid questions. So I appreciate you guys spending your time watching, listening to me talk about Vermintide. If you liked the video, please like it, subscribe, and I will see you on the next one.